Okay, today we are starting with the last chapter of business analysis preparation, and that is chapter 6, and solution evaluation is the topic. Now, this chapter is not a very lengthy chapter, but still, I hope I can cover it today. But if not, then we have to complete it tomorrow. Okay. What all we have to cover in this solution evaluation chapter is number one, there are 11 headings. Number one is the overview of this section, then is the purpose of the solution evaluation, recommended mindset for evaluation, plan for evaluation of the solution. Fifth topic is determine what to evaluate. Sixth is when and how to validate solution results. Seventh is evaluate acceptance criteria and address defects. Then is facilitate the go no-go decision. 9 is obtain sign-off of the solution. 10 is evaluate the long-term performance of the solution. And finally, solution replacement or phase out. First of all, overview of this section. Evaluation consists of business analysis activities performed to validate a full solution or a segment of solution that is about to be or has already been implemented. Evaluation determines how well a solution meets the business needs expressed by stakeholders, including delivering value to the customer. Some evaluation activities result in a qualitative or coarsely quantitative assessment of a solution. Conducting surveys or focus groups and analyzing the results of exploratory testing of functionality are examples of qualitative or coarsely quantitative evaluation. So, broadly speaking, these qualitative and coarsely quantitative evaluations mean that we are not going full length, full throttle into the quantitative analysis or quantitative evaluations, but broadly and very coarsely, we are, doing some little kind of quantitative analysis. Little numerics are being involved, but it is not in-depth numerical analysis. So this is what is coarsely quantitative. Mostly, the evaluation will be covered through the qualitative analysis, qualitative evaluation, but in some cases, coarsely quantitative is also mentioned here. Other evaluation activities involve more precise quantitative explicit measurements, and that is exactly what is the next step. So in the first step, you do qualitative or coarsely quantitative, and now in the next step, uh, the activities could go through a thorough and precise procedure of quantitative assessment, which includes explicit measurements, physical measurements. Comparisons between expected and actual results obtained from a solution are usually expressed quantitatively. So once we do that, when we do the precise quantitative analysis, then the comparisons can also be done actually. For solutions involving software, analyzing comparisons between expected and actual values of data manipulated by the high-level functionality of the solution can be part of the evaluation. Non-functional characteristics of a solution, sometimes known as the quality attributes, are often evaluated with measurements. Now, quality attributes are non-functional. Why? Because these are not the basic functional requirements of the project. The customer did not ask for them, but still customer required certain quality attributes to be linked to that. So these are non-functional characteristics and they are not included in the list of basic functions, but every function has some quality to meet. So the determination of the tolerance within which the quality is acceptable would account for the quality attributes. For example, measurements are required to evaluate whether performance service level agreements are being met. Additionally, comparing estimated and actual costs and benefits may be part of an evaluation of a solution. This section of the practice guide covers both qualitative and quantitative evaluation activities. The techniques described herein are compatible with predictive, iterative, and adaptive project life cycles. Most of these techniques are useful for all kinds of projects and solutions. A few techniques are identified as specifically applying to solutions involving software. Many of the techniques used during evaluation activities are also used during analysis or testing and sometimes during needs assessment. In addition, there is some overlap between evaluation techniques and traceability. The use of analysis techniques for multiple purposes is natural because one of the overarching goals of all analysis activities is to obtain a clear, unambiguous understanding of all aspects of a problem under consideration. This section of practice guide refers to other sections in the practice guide when the activities and techniques are already described. Additional techniques are introduced as part of solution evaluation domain to precisely define acceptance criteria and enable measuring against the defined criteria. Techniques for defining acceptance criteria are also used as part of planning and analysis as a basis for testing of or defining service level agreements and non-functional requirements. So this was a brief introduction about what we are going to be doing. So just to check if you are receiving all the communication so far.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we can go ahead.
Hello?
Can you hear
Yes,
me?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
right. So let us move on to the next section, that is 6.2, purpose of the solution evaluation. So what is the purpose of solution evaluation? Solution evaluation activities provide the ability to assess whether or not a solution has achieved the desired business result. Evaluation provides input to go, no-go business and technical decisions when releasing an entire solution or a segment of it. So, go, no-go decision means that this is the decision point, this is the gateway point where either the decision is in favor or against. So, go is okay decision and no-go is stop decision that this is not correct. So these could be business decisions, they could be technical decisions, but this is evaluation is the point where you are capable of taking such like decisions, go and no go decisions. For projects using iterative and adaptive life cycles, and for multi-phase projects using predictive life cycles, evaluation may identify a point of diminishing returns. An example of this is when additional value could be obtained from a project, but the additional effort needed to achieve it is not justified. So, when you feel that the effort we are putting in is not comparable with what value we are attaining, that is the point where you can say that solution is no more useful for us. Evaluation of an implemented solution may also be used to identify new or changed requirements which may lead to solution refinement or new solutions. Identification and definition of evaluation criteria also supports other analysis activities. 6.3, this is the recommended mindset for evaluation. Evaluation is often associated with the end of predictive life cycles. User acceptance, testing, release of the solution, all this happens at the end of a predictive life cycle where we have a very clear scope, and by the end of the project, by almost the end of the life cycle, we are in the process of the user acceptance testing and releasing the solution. For iterative and adaptive life cycles, you understand that the user acceptance and solution delivery, the releases are continuous in nature. So this is a continuous step. Evaluation may be associated with the end of a time segment and an iteration or a sprint. So every iteration and sprint goes through the user acceptance and the release of the part of solution. Or when a user story is delivered and completed for an adaptive approach that has no fixed time segment, such as Kanban. Kanban is another example where there is no fixed time limit. Evaluate early and often. When evaluation criteria are defined early, they can be applied to the project in progress and they provide input into the development of test strategies, test plans, and test cases. Early uses of lightweight evaluation techniques identify which areas of a solution need the more testing. Early articulation of evaluation criteria is an excellent way to specify or confirm both functional and non-functional requirements. Treat requirement analysis, traceability, testing, and evaluation as complementary activities. Adaptive life cycles explicitly define acceptance criteria with concrete examples as part of the elaboration of a user story. The acceptance criteria and the user story definition support each other. Together, these establish mutual agreement between business stakeholders and those responsible for developing the solution for what is required and how to know that the requirement has been met. Just hold on a moment. Predictive and iterative life cycles also recognize the value of early testing in a project. Early test specifications provide concrete examples that add clarity to requirements regardless of how they are specified. Formal traceability matrices provide verification that requirements support business goals and objectives and that testing sufficiently covers the requirement. So that's what we have already done. Goals and objectives and the traces between them and the requirements that support them provide insight into the candidate metrics for evaluation. So this becomes the basis for the evaluation. Traceability is an important aspect which defines how to evaluate. The collaboration point here is the business analysts, project managers, and the testers should work together early on to create consistent complementary approaches to analysis, testing, and evaluation activities. Testers can help check for completeness and consistency of all forms of requirements and evaluation criteria, and business analysts can help check for sufficient test coverage for areas of the solution that have the highest business priority. Then is evaluate with the context of usage and value in mind. So once you are evaluating, you must consider that the context as well as keep the value in mind. Validating a solution is more complex than validating to determine whether individual requirements have been met. Validation not only ensures that the solution is working as designed, but also confirms that it enables the usage and value that the business expected. So it is just not the working solution, is not a working solution which we are handing over, but we are ensuring that it is going to deliver the value which was expected. No matter how requirements are elicited and specified, there is some intended usage associated with each requirement or group of requirements. The names of epics, user stories, and use case scenarios that focus on functionality provide direct identification of the intended usage. For epics and user stories that are not about functionality, usage is inferred from the so I can part of the story, which provides its rationale. So the epic and user story you can keep in front of you and see what you should be able to do if this user story is accomplished. So what you can do is what is to be checked. For example, the following epic is written for the insurance company discussed earlier. It described a need for information regarding the education of claims. The so I can statement alludes to the usage of the data. As an operations manager, I need data about the percentage of claims that were automatically adjudicated and the average time for a manual adjudication so that I can assess how the revised adjudication practices are performing. So you see, the last portion of this use case is that I can assess how the revised adjudication practices are performing. This is what is to be checked in evaluation. This is the focus of the evaluation in this point. So every use case, every epic, or every the user story would have this portion which actually has to be checked. This is how we will do the evaluation. As far as the non-functional requirements are concerned, that define expectations for the performance or operation of a solution also have an implied context of usage because the solution is expected to perform or to be available, scalable, or usable. so that work can be accomplished. Next is confirm expected values for software solutions. For automated solutions, it is essential to validate functionality that manipulates data by using the solution's data retrieval functionality. However, the sufficiency of the solution also needs to be evaluated by confirming that the actual data is accurately stored, because that data may potentially be retrieved in other ways for other users and uses. Example could be, consider the insurance company example we were also already talking about, where the business need is to provide a software solution so that a claim can be submitted via a mobile device. Part of the evaluation of the solution is to look at the results of the tests where a claimant submits a claim using the mobile device, and also look at the results of tests where the claim is retrieved using the mobile device to ensure that the actual claim is presented as expected. However, in an insurance company, a claim can be retrieved in other ways, such as through a reporting mechanism or another interface, such as a claim adjuster's workstation. When those usages are not part of the scope of the solution, it is still part of the scope to accurately store the claim data so that it is available for any usage. To verify that the data is accurately stored and available for other forms of retrieval, the results that were obtained by accessing the data directly from its storage location should be reviewed to confirm that the actual stored values match the expected stored values. Even when direct confirmation of stored data is included during testing, it is worthwhile to confirm it against as part of evaluating the most used portions of the functionality. For example, evaluation of a software solution is usually conducted against a system that is either about to be released or has already been released. Therefore, testing during evaluation usually encompasses a larger body of data than the initial testing. As a result, new and different kinds of data anomalies may be uncovered by looking at the results of tests used to directly confirm the data, and these anomalies will need to be analyzed. Next is plan for evaluation of the solution. But before we can move ahead, I would like to ask you if you have anything to ask.
No, sir. No, sir, I understand it. This is very simple and clear, I think.
Okay, so we move ahead. As I
Yeah.
said, next topic is 6.4, plan for evaluation of the solution. Undertaking evaluation activities is not a trivial task. I hope we understand that. It takes time and effort to identify and confirm evaluation criteria, implement anything necessary for taking measurements that is not already built into the solution or its infrastructure, take the measurements and report on and analyze the measurements. Factors to consider when planning for evaluation activities include: number one, what project or organizational goal, objective, or risk does this evaluation activity monitor or track or confirm? Number two, who will cover cost for the time and effort needed to conduct evaluations? You see, money and time will be spent in this. Who is going to cover for that? Third, does the solution or its infrastructure have built-in measurement capabilities for the evaluation criteria? Four, are there already ways to extract measurement data to use in the evaluation? Fifth, is the chosen evaluation method effective and relatively inexpensive? And last, are there already existing ways to report and publish the results of an evaluation? Taking them one by one. First was, what project or organizational goal, objective, or risk does this evaluation activity monitor or track or confirm? Project implementations are often inundated with monitoring and tracking dashboards and reports that are never used or sometimes never even viewed. It is important to tie every evaluation activity and every individual metric to organizational or project priorities. Two, who will cover cost and time and effort needed to conduct the evaluations? When there are plans to evaluate the long-term performance of a solution, ongoing or periodic evaluation activities are needed for a period of time that is longer than an initial evaluation. Depending upon organizational responsibilities, Evaluation activities may be charged to a project or to quality assurance or some other part of the organization. Somebody has to pay for it. The organizational area that is going to assume the cost for evaluation should be involved in approving the estimates for the evaluation activities. These estimates should be provided as early as possible in the project lifecycle, as if the funds can be available for that. Third, does the solution or its infrastructure have built-in measurement capabilities for the evaluation criteria? Additional measurement capabilities may be needed when none are built in or when what is built in is not sufficient or enough. For software solutions, additional data may need to be stored programmatically to enable measurements. Every additional data element that is needed should be recorded either manually or automatically. Each additional data element requires either a human procedure or a software code to ensure that it is captured. But we have to, portray both kind of situations. The data must be made available, whether it is actual data or it has been programmed to be there. Example is, one of the goals in the insurance company example was to reduce the amount of time it takes to process claims. When there are capabilities to capture the data, a date and time a claim was filed, and the date and time its adjudication was completed, then it is already possible to determine the elapsed time to process a claim. Elapsed time may be a sufficient evaluation criteria. However, when a further breakdown is needed, additional data may need to be captured. For example, how long it took to submit the claim, determine eligibility, or adjudicate the claim, whether or not the claim was in a pending state, and if so, how often were eligibility and adjudication automated versus performed manually by a claims adjuster, or the date when payment finally arrived to the claimant's mailbox or bank account. So you can analyze all of these situations, all of these things, and that would be giving you the exact picture. Are there already ways to extract measurement data to use in the evaluation? When data exists, it does not necessarily mean that it is available for evaluation. For example, looking at the insurance company, if they accepted quantitative measurements for length of time to process a claim is the elapsed time between the date and time a claim was filed to the date and time it was adjudicated. Is there already a software query, a report, or a human procedure that reviews all claims and calculates the average elapsed time to process a claim, organized by some rolling duration? If not, someone is going to have to write the query or create the report or create a human procedure to make the measurement available or perform the required calculations to support the evaluation. Ways to extract and report on qualitative or semi-quantitative evaluation data need to be available or created. In addition, if the insurance company decides to use a customer satisfaction survey as part of how it evaluates its new mobile application for claim submission, the results of that survey need to be aggregated and analyzed. Fifth, is the chosen evaluation method effective and relatively inexpensive? Organizations that attempt to evaluate solutions and project outcomes sometimes discover that the evaluation activities are extremely costly. This is particularly true when additional data above and beyond the data needed for the solution needs to be embedded in the solution in order to evaluate it. For example, using the insurance example, if it is necessary to evaluate whether all population can easily use the new mobile application for home and auto insurance claims, demographic data that is not required to process the claims need to be collected. Adding and maintaining data elements about the claimant which are not core to the solution has an added cost that some businesses may not want to pay for. With that in mind, the insurance company may decide to collect this information for its own evaluation in a less precise, less expensive way that is still effective. The insurance company could conduct a survey with questions about the usability of the new application and also include some demographic questions to segment the responses. The survey will not may have the precision to tie specific demographics directly to a specific claim that was submitted, but it will be sufficient for the purposes of evaluating the usability of the solution. 6 is, are there already existing ways to report and publish the results of an evaluation? Some organizations already have homegrown or purchased automated tools that produce dashboards or scheduled reports or use report templates when evaluations are conducted manually. If these kinds of tools or templates are not available, or if the evaluation requires data that has not been previously captured, then there will be additional costs incurred to make the results of an evaluation available. This brings us to the topic 6.5, determine what to evaluate. There are a number of factors to think about when identifying evaluation criteria. This section presents a list of these items for consideration. Section 6.6, next section is, provides information on techniques for conducting evaluation and for defining evaluation criteria and acceptance levels. But in this section, we are going to be talking about number 1, goals and objectives. Consider the business goals and objectives. Business goals and objectives and priorities enable a project to launch and hopefully result in a solution. The solution needs to be evaluated against those goals and objectives. In this practice guide, section 2, which we have already covered on need assessment, emphasized that goals and objectives need to be SMART. So if that criteria is fulfilled, then we can move ahead and we would know what we are evaluating. The measurements specified in the goals and objectives serve as good clues as to what needs to be measured during the evaluation of the solution. Next is KPIs. Consider key performance indicators. Key performance indicators are metrics that are usually defined by an organization's executives. These indicators can be used to evaluate an organization's progress in achieving its objectives or goals. Typical broad categories of KPIs are finance, customer, sales and marketing, operational processes, employee and environmental oblique corporate, and social oblique responsibility of sustainability. So these are the various areas which could be tested for and considered as the key performance indicators. Sometimes information technology is rolled into the operational processes category, and sometimes it is considered a separate KPI category. Most project goals and objectives are associated with one or more of these KPIs. For organizations that already define and measure KPIs, one or more of these KPIs can be used to evaluate the solution, taking advantage of measurement capabilities for KPIs that have already been used in the same way. Consider additional evaluation metrics and evaluation acceptance criteria. While many of the metrics and acceptance criteria for evaluating the solution fall out of the goals, objectives, or KPIs, there may be additional metrics and acceptance criteria to consider. Some examples of additional metrics and acceptance criteria can be project metrics as input to the evaluation of solution, customer metrics, sales and marketing metrics, operational metrics and assessments, and functionality. Talking about the project metrics as input to the evaluation of the solution, when considering project metrics as input to the evaluation of a solution, it is important to distinguish between those metrics that support evaluating the solution and those that focus on project execution. So the outputs we are taking out of the project, we are using for determining the evaluation of the solution. So we must be very careful that the metrics we are taking are specific to project. They may not exactly fit into the solution metrics. Actual project cost can be inputs to financial evaluation of a solution, such as recalculation of return on investment or net present value, where projected costs are replaced by actual costs and benefits are revised when they are better known. Metrics derived from a measurement of cost, effort, and duration, such as variances between estimated amounts, actual values, are used to track project progress and performance. Some organizations use earned value calculations for this purpose. While variances and earned values are important metrics for many organizations when evaluating projects, they do not explicitly evaluate the solution. So these are not applicable tools for evaluating the solution, and in any event are usually within the purview of the project management rather than business analysis. So such like tools may not apply when we are taking data input from project metrics. Tracking change requests can be used as an indicator of project volatility, but not as an indicator of solution viability. Tracking the status of requirements is a way to track project progress, but may or may not reflect the completeness of the solution or how well it serves its purpose. Tracking the number of defects identified and the number that have been fixed is indicative of effort undertaken to address the quality. However, it does not reflect the actual quality of the solution, not whether it provides value to the stakeholder or customers. So these are several things uh, which are open to the suggestion. They will be known later, but they cannot be evaluated at this stage in time. Projects using an adaptive lifecycle such as Scrum or Kanban often use other metrics to reflect a project team's rate of progress on a project. The measurements are often expressed in terms of burn down, the number of backlog items remaining at any point in time, and velocity, the number of backlog items completed during a delivery interval. I hope you understand what is a burn down chart or what is the velocity. Do you know about it?
No, sir. No, sir. Can you please explain it?
Okay. A burn down chart is the total number of requirements in the product backlog. That all the user stories in the backlog is my total workload. So this chart is a reverse of a S curve. What happens is I say in the beginning, this much work is remaining. How much work is remaining? All the work is remaining. So sum of all the user stories is remaining in the beginning. After one iteration is completed, say 10 out of those product backlog user stories have been completed. So my burn down chart will show 10 user stories less than the original. And as I keep moving ahead in iteration by iteration, my workload will keep reducing. So this is a reverse kind of a chart which initially shows the total workload, and as we move ahead with the iterations, the tasks which are completed, they are subtracted out of the total work, and I keep getting a new point. This is called a burn down chart. Burn down means that the total workload has been burning out. Whatever I have completed has been burnt out. The left, whatever is left is the remaining work. Remaining work. This is the burn down chart. So if you look at the definition, the number of backlog items remaining at any point in time. So there were 100 items initially in the product backlog. Right now there are only 50. So 50 is my burn down chart, shows 50 at this point in time. As far as velocity is concerned, how many users stories, what is the speed of the team to complete the user stories? That is the velocity of the team. How many user stories can you undertake? Actually, all user stories are not equal in size. Some user stories are slightly difficult to accomplish, some are easy to accomplish. Some user stories are big, slightly bigger than the others. So what we can do is we can assign some story points to each user story. So one user story could be 5 story points, some user story could be 3 story points, and so different story points could be allocated to different user stories. Now, when this team picked up 10 tasks, then they must have calculated the user story points. So maybe these 10 tasks which they picked up for doing, they are worth 26 user stories. So they expected their velocity to be 26 user stories in one iteration. But for example, they could not accomplish it. They only could accomplish 20. So then they would know that our capacity is 20 user stories. Next time, they will be picking up from the product backlog only 20 story point equivalent of user stories. Did I make myself clear?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. I got it.
Okay. These measurements reflect the efficiency of the project, what the project has delivered, that what was deliberately not delivered, de-scoped, and what remains to be delivered. Then his project metrics are as input to the evaluation of the solution. I think we were already talking about it. Again, these are primarily project execution metrics. However, these metrics can contribute indirectly to evaluating a solution. Minimally, at a qualitative level, agile metrics may be assessed as part of evaluating whether the solution was delivered to the business faster and whether delivering some functionality sooner provided the business with any benefits. For example, an overall increased market share or a lift in the amount of business conducted with existing customers. Collaboration point here could be the business analysts and project managers should work together with stakeholders to consider which project metrics should be incorporated into the evaluation activities. Then are the customer metrics. From a customer perspective, evaluation sometimes focuses on qualitative aspects such as satisfaction, like customer satisfaction, but even qualitative aspects can be measured semi-quantitatively. How do you do that? Do you have any idea how can a qualitative aspect be measured as semi-quantitative?
Sir, currently I think, I mean, we have not done this, but what actually I think there are some softwares and tools are now introduced in, in this field, qualitative
Okay.
and quantitative, but I have not worked it, but I have, I have just, see it that, I mean, this is something new technology and tools to be, work upon.
I think this is quite simple. I'll just explain it to you. For example, you want to see if your customer satisfaction, you have achieved the desired customer satisfaction or not. So how do you measure that? I do not have a quantitative way of doing that. I just have a qualitative way of doing that. I can say, okay, let us measure on a scale of 1 to 5 how satisfied a customer is. So I go to my customers and I tell them, 1 being the lowest scale and 5 being the highest scale, how satisfied you are. So ultimately, I collect a lot of data and I do some probability analysis, and ultimately I determine that the overall customer satisfaction level is 4. 1 out of 5, it is 4. So this 4 is a qualitative data. This is not quantitative. So how can I convert it into a semi-quantitative kind of a thing? Can I put a dollar value to the customer satisfaction? Now, this is a very difficult job. I cannot directly put a dollar value to the customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction of 4 means $2,000 of benefit. No, I can't do that. But let us say that due to the satisfaction of the customer, what are the benefits we have attained? Maybe our business has risen by $200 million just due to the customer satisfaction which we have achieved in the past 1 year. And in past one year we have been doing this job. And previously it was much lower. So this past 1 year can be the 200 million rupees which we have attained extra this year can be contributed towards the customer satisfaction, and we can even calculate how much customer satisfaction per day per customer we have achieved. So this is not exactly a quantitative data, but we are trying to translate the qualitative data into some kind of common sense quantitative data, which is actually a semi-quantitative in nature. Ji,
Okay, right, right.
okay.
But
Ji,
identify it's very difficult to identify. You are just giving the definitely the numbers. There's something logic behind it.
you
It
have
go
to,
over or 3 or 2
you
or
have,
1,
no, there is no
right?
logic. The qualitative is a Likert scale. A Likert scale has no
Okay,
logic. This is just a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. So he can pick any value. We have to a certain, for example, I want to know how happy you are. So when I ask you
Mm-hmm.
how happy you are, what will you answer? Very happy. So I ask another person,
Mm-hmm.
he also tells me very happy. But is your very happy equivalent to his very happy? This I'm not sure. So what I do is I make a false scale. I make a Likert scale, and I ask you on the on a measure of 1 to 5, how happy do you feel you are? Then you say 4.
Okay.
Then I ask that person, he may say no, I am just 3. So now I am able to
Mm-hmm.
differentiate between two people's very happy. Your very happy is 4, his very happy is 3. So now this is more, though it is a qualitative data, but I have somehow brought it down into a sense where I can compute it. I can, do the probability analysis. And even if I want to convert into full-fledged quantitative data, I can also put some dollar value to it.
Okay. Right.
Okay, the next, an example for customer metric. Using the insurance example, what percentage of customers responding to the survey report indicate they are very pleased or extremely pleased with the new mobile application? How many calls does customer support receive about the new mobile application? What is the trend in the frequency of the calls? How many of these calls are complaints? Evaluation from a customer perspective can also be more quantitative. For example, when assessing the usability of the insurance mobile application, if the business expected the customers could file 90% of their own claims in less than 10 minutes, is this occurring? So you can somehow discern some of the sense out of it, that financial benefit you can achieve through this. Then is sales and marketing metrics. Sales and marketing may have ranges of measurable goals for the project. For example, a range of expected values for overall increased market share, or a range for percentage increase in the amount of business done with existing customers. The solution can be evaluated to determine whether or not these expectations have been met. Operational metrics may be functional or non-functional and can be considered from a system perspective, a human perspective, or even both. For organizations that define and measure operational KPIs, it may be possible to reuse one or more of the metrics to evaluate the solution, provided it is possible to determine impact of the solution on the KPI. As stated in the previous section on requirement elicitation and analysis, process flows, we learned about the swim lane diagram, can be annotated either on an overall basis or a stepwise basis with baseline, target, or actual key performance indicators metrics. So we can even show the KPIs right on the swim lane diagram. Functionality in subsequently in 6.6.1, 6.6.7, these sections will describe some techniques that are used to evaluate functionality, such as reviewing the results of verification activities to specific broad business usages of the solution as represented by bunches of use cases or scenarios or user stories or functional requirements executed in a natural sequence. With the exception of situations where errors in the solution could result in an unacceptable level of risk to life, property, or financial solvency, evaluation should not require a review of the results of the individual tests conducted during the development of the solution, other than to confirm that the test coverage was sufficient. Non-functional requirements are used to specify overall system-wide characteristics of the solution, such as performance, throughput, availability, reliability, scalability, flexibility, and usability. For example, what is the availability of the new mobile application? Can it support an X% increase in the number of users using it simultaneously, where X is defined by the business? Organizations that already define and measure information technology KPIs may already have instrumentation to measure system-wide non-functional requirements such as availability. How do they measure availability? Maybe we can adopt that. Non-functional requirements can also be evaluated at a usage level. In the insurance example, From a usage perspective, how easy was it for a customer to file a claim? Where easy is defined in a measurable way. How fast did an automatic adjudication process occur? Clearly specified non-functional requirements should be written down to identify their measurable acceptance criteria. Refer to section 6.6.6 that is coming subsequently for ways to define measurable acceptance criteria for non-functional requirements. Measurable acceptance criteria can also be basis of service level agreements. Then confirm that the organization can continue with evaluation. As measurements are identified, review any estimates for the cost of evaluation and update them as needed. When necessary, reconfirm that the organization or department who is sponsoring the evaluation and covering costs is still able or willing to do so. Next topic is when and how to evaluate solution results. For a predictive project lifecycle, validate the solution at the end of the project lifecycle. This we know. Either immediately before release or at an agreed upon time after release. For an iterative and adaptive project lifecycle, validation is performed at the end of every iteration, sprint, or release when the team provides production ready functionality for the stakeholders to evaluate. So, in agile or adaptive method, the delivery of value is continuous in nature, whereas in predictive lifecycle, the delivery of value is at the end of the cycle. The following evaluation techniques can be used to evaluate solution results. Surveys and focus groups, we all understand that. Results from exploratory testing and user acceptance testing. Results from day in the life testing. Day in the life means, just like, you might have seen the program Ek Din Jio Ke Saath. So this is, you spend a day in the life of the test, in the real life to see the testing process. We'll discuss that. Results from integration testing. Expected and actual results for functionality. Expected versus actual results for non-functional requirements and outcome measurement and financial calculations of the benefits. While this list is not exhaustive, it does contain widely used techniques. These techniques are described in more detail in subsequent sections. 6.6.1 Surveys and focus groups. Again, very simple. As previously mentioned in section 4 on requirement elicitation and analysis, surveys can be used to gather information and elicit requirements from a very large and are geographically dispersed population. Survey questions can solicit qualitative and semi-quantitative feedback about satisfaction with the solution, how it is performed, and what aspect of the solution present challenges to its users. All of the advantages and concerns mentioned in the analysis section of this practice guide also apply to use of surveys for evaluation. So, tool is same, but it is now being used for the evaluation purposes of the solution. Whereas earlier we were eliciting the information, so we had floated surveys and focus groups for that purpose. And now it is for the uh, evaluation of the solution. Focus groups provide an opportunity for individuals to offer thoughts and ideas about topic in a group setting and to discuss or qualify comments from other participants. Like surveys, focus groups are useful either as an elicitation technique, as we have used earlier, or as an evaluation technique to obtain feedback from the stakeholders in general and more specifically from users of the solution. Results from exploratory testing and user acceptance testing. Exploratory testing is an unscripted, free-form validation or evaluation activity conducted by someone with in-depth business or testing knowledge. Generally, exploratory testing should be conducted in addition to, not in place of, formal testing. So, formal testing is mandatory. This is going to be happening, but this exploratory testing is in addition to the formal testing, and this is a surprise kind of a test. User acceptance testing is a formal testing activity which validates that the solution meets the defined acceptance criteria. So this cannot be mixed with the exploratory testing. It is conducted by someone with in-depth business knowledge. For evaluation, the results obtained from exploratory testing and user acceptance testing are used to determine whether or not a product, service, or solution is working as intended with regard to functionality and ease of use when applicable performance. When done well, exploratory testing also attempts to uncover whether or not a product, service, or solution responds properly to the unintended uses, does not permit them, or whether it can be used in ways that were not intended. Day in the life of life testing is a semi-formal activity conducted by someone with in-depth business knowledge. For software solutions, DATL testing consists of a set of use case scenarios or several user stories or functional requirements to exercise in sequence against a specific segment of a data in order to compare the expected results with the actual results. So you have a series of user stories prepared, scenarios prepared, and you are applying them, knowing the answers to each one of them. You are applying them to this testing environment and seeing whether the desired results are coming through this test or not. If not, then there is something wrong. Sometimes day in that live testing is used more broadly as a semi-scripted form of exploratory testing. For evaluation, the results obtained from DATL testing help to determine whether or not a product, service, or solution provides the functionality for a typical day of a usage by a role that interacts with the solution. For example, using the insurance example, the solution can be evaluated from the DATL perspective of a claims submitter or claims adjuster. So you can simulate the role of a claims submitter or a claims adjuster. Results from integration testing. Integration testing is used to validate or evaluate whether a solution does what is expected in a larger context of other ongoing business and system operations in the organization. From the perspective of software solutions, integration testing is more encompassing than system testing. System testing is a form of verification that proves when a solution being developed can interoperate with other systems and organizations that request services from it or vice versa. Results from integration testing. Integration testing places the solution in an environment that is either identical to or nearly identical to the production environment. For software solutions, organizations that have the resources to maintain an isolated, separate production-like test environment are able to conduct integration testing prior to the release of the solution. Organizations with small test environments can conduct an integrated evaluation in their pre-production environment. By examining the results of integration testing, it is possible to evaluate a solution in the larger context because new and different kinds of anomalies may be uncovered when a solution is introduced into a production environment. So, next is expected versus actual results for functionality. This section provides a generic way to capture acceptance criteria and expected versus actual results for functionality. During requirement solicitation, broad acceptance criteria are sometimes defined in terms of the actual usage of the solution. Acceptance criteria defined as part of evaluation need to be broad, yet still have expected results that are compared to the actual results. A DATL test, such as day in the life of a claim submitter or claim adjuster, can be constructed from one or more functional acceptance criteria. One format for defining functional acceptance criteria is presented in Table 6.1, following by a definition for each of its terms and sample of broad acceptance criteria using the insurance example. Note that this format is independent of whether or not the solution is automated in whole or in part. So this is the example in front of you. This is a sample format for defining functional acceptance criteria. And you have seen similar kind of thing earlier also. Field, we have a precondition, we have an event, and we have expected result. So precondition, the definition is whatever needs to be true with the evaluation within the evaluation boundary to evaluate against the acceptance criteria. So what are the prerequisites? An event, the specific action is to occur along with any specific input data needed for the action. This is the event. And what are the expected results? A list of expected responses, which may be a response message, our acknowledgement, and our output data are post condition that may be observed. So sample from the insurance example, the preconditions could be active medium-term customer of an insurance company. The claim's maximum automatic reimbursement amount for automatic adjudication is defined. Service level agreement for manual claims adjudication is defined. So these three conditions must have been fulfilled. As if, what is the event here? Submit a claim that exceeds the claim maximum automatic reimbursement amount. So this is what the event is. And what is the result expected out of it? Claim is even pended. Our customer receives a message that the claim will be adjudicated by a claims adjuster within the number of days specified by the service level agreement for manual claims adjudication. So you see, in this small little table has given us acceptance criteria, a functional acceptance criteria. We can create this kind of table and we can define the acceptance criteria for various user stories. Functional acceptance criteria may be tabulated as shown in table 6.1 or by placing all of the fields in one row, thereby making each functional acceptance criteria a row entry below the field names. Many business analysts add an additional field for actual results to aid in the analysis of expected versus actual. So if you can add this field, actual results, they can be written in front of that. So it could have been shown like this. First column is precondition, second column is event, third column is expected result, and whatever are the actual results would be recorded there, and expected results and actual results will be compared. Non-functional requirement. This section provides a generic way to define acceptance criteria and capture expected versus actual results for non-functional requirements. When the acceptance criteria for non-functional requirements are defined quantitatively within reasonable ranges, these criteria can also serve as the basis for service level agreements. The optional format shown in table 6.3 can be used to define non-functional acceptance criteria. Each of the terms is followed by a definition and a sample of acceptance criteria using the insurance example. So now just look at this table. This is the sample format for analyzing expected and actual results for a non-functional requirement. So what do we have here? Here we have the type, name, description, how to measure, worst case value, target value, and best case value. So this is for non-functional requirement in which we are not very specific. So in this, we are trying to define a boundary, the worst case and the best case, and in between everything is acceptable. And target value is what we are focusing at. For this example, let us see. First of all, let's see what these definitions are. Type means designation of the kind of non-functional requirement for which the acceptance criteria is being defined. Name is a unique designation of this non-functional requirement. Description is a very short summary that explains what is to be measured. How to measure is how the solution characteristic will be measured and what the measurement units will be. Worst case is the minimally accepted value. Target value is the expected value for the solution characteristic, and best case value is the ideal measurement for the solution characteristic where there is no commitment to achieve this value. Now let's look at the insurance example. What is a type? The non-functional requirement we are talking about is of the type usability. It will check the usability of what? The name of the requirement is customer ease of use, and description is elapsed time between time of new customer starts to submit a claim and the time that the new customer completes the submission. A new customer is someone who is submitting a claim for the first time. So the time which it will take from starting to submit the claim and completing that submission, this time is to be measured. How to measure? Elapsed time in minutes to complete a claim submission as measured by the stopwatch for paper forms and by weblog timestamp for mobile applications. Worst case is not more than 15 minutes for 90% of measurements. Target value is not more than 10 minutes for 90% of measurements. And the best case is not more than 5 minutes for all measurements. So this way we can have a mechanism of measurement. Then is the outcome measurement and financial calculation of benefits. Some expected benefits for a project are readily tied to factors that can be measured. Others may need to be derived or inferred. I'm sorry, you have raised your hand. Yes, please.
Sir, I was asking that integration testing is actually done by QA team, but here we are discussing that it is done by business team. So I'm
Yes,
confused in this point. We do the testing, but I think
yes,
that is, I think, DILT or something. Means we
mm,
do the auditing.
yes, of course. But you see, business analyst is overall responsible for the thing. So you may have other people involved, like the testers. Who are these testers? Testers are basically the quality people. So
Ji.
those people are
Mm-hmm.
involved. But this is the business of the business analyst to get those tests conducted.
And the test cases are also prepared by them, not by business team.
Well, a
So
business
what,
in charge of this problem is business team, right?
okay,
So if you are in charge of something, so you are responsible for creating all those business cases. But if if the team which has come in from quality can do it, then you can relax.
okay. But the in charge is, we are saying the
It's the
business
business
team
analyst.
and
Yeah,
business analyst.
exactly. Actually, in real life, we do not have this kind of relationship available. We do not have business analysts working for different things, and we have got direct responsibilities given to the quality people and other people. So, if
Mm-hmm.
business analyst is existing, then probably he will take charge of all of this, evaluations and everything.
Okay. Okay, okay, right.
Okay, moving ahead. Um, I was saying some expected benefits for a project are readily tied to factors that can be measured, others may not, may need to be derived or inferred. For example, using an insurance company example, one of the benefits was to decrease the time to process a claim. The average time to process a claim should be measurable and the solution should be evaluated as to how well it was achieved. Beyond the actual measurement, as part of evaluation, it may be important for claims operations to derive the financial benefit of decreasing the time to process a claim. The example shown in table 6.4 represents one way in which the derivation of such a benefit may be specified. Just look at 6.4. This is a sample outcome measurement and financial calculation of benefit. So just look at this topic, name of the outcome, that is decreased time to process a manual claim. How measured? Difference between the previous and current average number of minutes for a submitted claim to be paid. All claims were manual prior to the implementation of the solution. Now, a manual claim is one that cannot be adjudicated automatically using the solution developed by the project. Inferred and derived financial benefit. Total number of hours that claim adjusters previously spent on manual claims per calendar quarter minus total number of hours the claim adjusters currently spend on manual claims per calendar quarter multiplied by average hourly salary of a claims adjuster. Sources of record are the claim adjuster timekeeping timesheets or payrolls. Importance is this outcome is needed to evaluate operational productivity. The inferred derived financial benefit is needed to evaluate actual cost oblique benefits against expected cost benefits. Current ability to measure. The needed information is available. A business decision is needed for how, whether to include overtime in the calculation. How fresh does info need to be? Most recent quarter or previous quarter. How trended and tracked? Quarter to quarter comparison. Areas which need this metric, claims operations. So you see, through these charts and tables, what we have seen in the last few slides, we can very easily uh, try to measure things. the measurements can be somehow maintained and captured. In the claims example, in the 6.4 table we just saw, the information needed for the calculation is readily available. In situation where it is not, the business should decide whether it is willing to spend the money for the capability to collect the information needed to conduct the evaluation. Now 6.7 is evaluate acceptance criteria and address defects. As evaluations occur, regardless of the type of life cycle, one or more of the following activities, that is 6.7.1 to 3, occur. Let us see what are they. 6.7.1 is comparison of expected versus actual results. For functional and non-functional requirements or user stories or use cases with defined acceptance criteria, the expected results can be compared with the actual results. In the insurance example, the worst case value and the target value defined in the acceptance criteria for customer ease of use indicate values that can be compared with the actual ease of use. This comparison may also be accomplished for qualitative evaluations such as surveys, where worst case and target value provides a way to compare expected with actual values. For example, the minimum for customer satisfaction could be that 70% of the survey respondents indicate that they were very pleased or extremely pleased with a new mobile application. The target could be 80% of the respondents rated their satisfaction as very pleased or extremely pleased. These values are then compared with the actual responses. Number 2 is examine tolerance ranges and exact numbers. Evaluations based on an exact value prediction of expected results have often been conducted in project management by comparing estimated costs and efforts to actual values and providing an explanation or reason for the variances. For acceptance criteria, for non-functional requirements, expected values take the form of tolerance range, where the worst case value corresponds to the minimum acceptable value, the best case value corresponds to the wished for value, and the most likely value corresponds to the target value. Thus, the expected value range is from worst case to best case, with the target lying somewhere in between. Using ranges as evaluation criteria for comparing expected values to actual results provide a way to recognize the inherent real uncertainties involved in developing a solution. At the same time, the minimum acceptable value represents a commitment by the project team to remain mindful of business needs. If the actual solution delivers less than the minimum acceptable value, the solution is defective in that regard. Third is log and address defects. When the actual results of an evaluation for a solution do not match the expected results, it is important to analyze the cause for the discrepancy. Sometimes evaluations uncover defects that were not previously found, and these should be logged and assigned for resolution. Sometimes evaluations identify that a service level agreement is not being met, and these situations should also be logged and assigned. Depending on the organization, defect logging and tracking can be performed on an informal or formal basis. Evaluation may discover or confirm that the actual values do not meet the expected goals, and the reasons may or may not be something that the solution is expected to accommodate. Examples: the insurance company expected 80% of the claims to be adjudicated automatically as a result of the solution, yet only 50% of the claims were automatically adjudicated. The reason may be that the business did not define a sufficient number of rules for automated adjudication in order to reach the goal, or it may be that there is a defect that is sending claims to the adjusters when the claims should be automatically adjudicated. It is also possible that a recent natural disaster caused a spike in larger and more complex claims. As with all defects, when a defect is found during evaluation, it should be addressed by additional requirements analysis, impact analysis, change request as applicable. Next is facilitate go no-go decision. When evaluation takes place prior to the release of a full solution or a segment of a solution, stakeholders need an opportunity to decide whether or not the solution should be released in whole or in part or not released at all. The stakeholders in the RASI matrix, that is responsible, accountable, concerned, and informed, who were identified as having a role to approve or sign off on the solution are generally the individuals who make the go or no go decision. So, who is accountable, responsible, and accountable? The person who is accountable, he is actually the person who will give you the go no go decision. It is important to summarize the evaluation results in a meaningful way because evaluations can produce voluminous amounts of information. Whenever possible, the evaluation results should be represented in a tabular or visual form, in charts, graphs, or pictorials to help decision make grasp the impact and render a decision. Whenever possible, go no go decisions should be made during an in person meeting to allow all stakeholders to hear the rationale for the decision from their counterparts. Like any well run meeting, the use of a time boxed agenda that is shared with all of the stakeholders prior to the meeting is recommended for go no go decision meetings. The stakeholders should be provided with access to the summarized evaluation results prior to the meeting. An agreed upon decision model for how to reach a decision should already be in place. A go permits the release to the solution. A no-go either delays or disapproves the release of the solution. The individual who analyzed the actual versus expected result should attend the decision-making meeting. In some organizations, that individual also facilitates the meeting, although the role that facilitates this meeting depends on organizational preferences. In any event, the individual who conducts the meeting should be experienced as a facilitator. Sometimes an evaluation result reveals an overriding reason to delay the release. For example, in the insurance example, when the solution exhibits very poor scalability, it may be beneficial to delay the release until the scalability defects are addressed. When a new regulatory constraint emerges, which requires a new adjudication calculation and result in much smaller or much larger payment per claim than provided by the solution, it may be wise to delay the solution until the calculation is adjusted. Sometimes an evaluation reveals a showstopper, which forces a no-go decision. Such decisions can occur in projects that present extreme risk for life or property or large-scale finances. Moving on to 6.9, that is obtaining the sign-off of the solution. The RASI developer developed previously on Section 3 on business analysis planning designates who is accountable for sign-off on the solution. So this is the person who will actually be signing it off. The formality of sign-off depends upon the type of project, the type of product, the project life cycle, and the corporate and regulatory constraints. For example, formal sign-off of the projects are a common protocol when one or more of the following characteristics are present. Projects with a line of business-wide or enterprise-wide impact. Products where errors or failures to achieve tolerances could result in death or an unacceptable level of risk to life, property, or financial solvency. Projects in organizations following strict predictive life cycles and heavily regulated industries such as banking and insurance or medical devices, clinical research, or pharmaceutical companies. Organizations with any kind of formal sign-off should reach agreement about the format of a sign-off document, how it should be recorded, how it should be stored, and whether sign-off needs to be obtained when all of the signatories are physically together or whether it is acceptable to sign remotely. For example, some organizations require wet signature, that is handwritten signature, for sign-offs, while others allow electronic signatures, email correspondence, or even electronic voting. Organizations with informal sign-off practices need to obtain sign-off in the manner that is acceptable to the organization. The collaboration point here is the project manager and the business analyst working with auditing and project stakeholders should work together to determine the sign-off practices required by the organization and for the project. For a predictive project lifecycle, sign-off often occurs at the end of the project lifecycle, either immediately pre-release or post-release. For an iterative and adaptive project lifecycle, informal sign-off generally occurs at the end of each sprint or iteration, with formal sign-off occurring prior to the release of the solution. 10th topic is evaluate the long-term performance of the solution. Evaluating long-term performance is part of assessing the business benefit realized by the implementation of the solution. Long-term performance is a broad concept and applies to the execution or accomplishment of work in any form by people or systems or both. Almost anything in a solution that was identified for measurement prior to release can be evaluated at regular intervals over the long term to identify positive or negative performance trends. For businesses that make use of business intelligence techniques, once a solution is released, any and all information captured as part of that solution can be analyzed to identify accomplishments and trends. Modern marketing organizations rely on analytics, business intelligence capabilities to evaluate whether or not marketing campaigns achieved the desired changes in customer behavior in the long term. Section 6.6.7, which we have already covered, illustrates a way to evaluate claims adjuster productivity. That evaluation could continue on a quarterly basis to see whether or not the solution continues to deliver increase in productivity or whether a plateau is reached. In the insurance example, analytics can be used to evaluate whether a business rule that was created to automate some of the claim payments is contributing to increased or decreased overall cost for the company. Then is the determine metrics. When evaluation is planned, the key metrics are identified well before the evaluation takes place. Business intelligence analytics applied to the information captured by the solution may reveal additional metrics. Additionally, post-release, stakeholder may identify new metrics that tie to the current or new objectives. When collected on a regular periodic basis, the metric noted in section 6.5 can be used to evaluate long-term performance. Businesses with established KPIs often use the metrics associated with them as an input to long-term evaluation of performance. Organizations with more modest performance measurement capabilities may prioritize a subset of metrics to use for long-term evaluation. Collaboration point here is project manager and business analysts should work together with stakeholders to identify and prioritize which performance aspects should be monitored over the long term and to confirm that the business is willing to cover the cost for the continued measurements and evaluations. Next is obtain metrics and measure performance. Realistic planning for evaluation is essential for obtaining metrics to measure performance. It can be costly to obtain metrics when the capability to capture them is not already present in the organization and its infrastructure prior to the release of the solution or when it is not built into the solution as part of its development. Usually the same technique selected to obtain, extract, and report on metrics during solution evaluation can be used to obtain metrics to measure long-term performance. Measuring long-term performance requires comparing individual and cumulative metrics collected during two or more comparable time periods, current year versus prior year, or this quarter versus last quarter, or the quarter prior to last quarter. Third is analyze results. Analysis of long-term performances examines the measurements, identifies stable metrics, that is plateaus, and metrics that are trending upward or downward, and discovers anomalies in the measured values or trends. Once the behavior of the metrics is known, further research and root cause analysis can identify the problem that is adversely affecting performance. In the insurance example provided in section 6.6.7, the expectation was that the claims adjusters productively would increase more over time as evidenced by a decreased average time to adjudicate the claims. If instead the productivity flatlined or trended downward over several quarters, it is important to find out why this is happening. Research and root cause analysis may reveal one or more reasons for not meeting the business objective, such as there was a severe spike in the complexity of claims due to natural disasters. The solution does not provide sufficient support to assist the adjusters. The solution provides sufficient support, but it is awkward to use. It takes too much time for claims adjuster to confirm damages. Work is expanding to fill the available time. 6.10.4 is assess limitations of the solution and organization. With analyzed metrics and root causes in hand, many of the same analysis techniques used to understand the problem and organization can be used again to assess the limitations of the solution and the organization. Referring back to the insurance example, a cost-benefit analysis could be formulated to determine whether it is worthwhile to try to improve productivity by adding more claims adjusters during period of peak claims submittals. Further research could be conducted to find out which types of claims take the longest to process and to examine what levels of support the solution provides for adjudicating these claims. Interviews and usability studies could be conducted to identify awkward aspects of the solution. Process flows, perhaps annotated with timings, could be used to identify opportunities for improvement in the claims register workflow, or if work expanded to fill the available time, interviews or focus group should reveal a root cause. Fifth is recommend approach to improve solution performance. As with the other aspects of this evaluation, the analysis techniques used to propose the initial solution can also be applied to recommend an approach for improving the solution performance. The work to implement the recommended approach needs to be prioritized as part of whatever ongoing planning activities the organization uses. Continuing with the same example, the result of the cost-benefit analysis is input into recommendation either to add more adjusters during peak claims or to find ways of helping the existing adjusters be more productive, maybe by providing trainings, additional rule-based processing, etc. The result of the research regarding which types of claims take the longest to process and how well the solution supports adjudicating those claims could lead to recommendations to provide additional training for adjusters or to support additional rule-based processing. Awkward aspects of the solution could be redesigned based on feedback from the interviews and usability studies and then retested. Facilitated work sessions could be conducted with decision makers to devise a future state process flow to improve claim registers' productivity. For work that expands to fill the time available, interviews or focus groups could help formulate a recommendation centered on training or management intervention without any change to the solution. Last topic is solution replacement or phase out. In general, there are 4 strategies for solution replacement phase out. These strategies apply equally well to automated, manual, or mixed solutions. Massive one-time cutover prior to installing the replacement and phasing out whatever existed prior to it. Segmented cutover to the replacement prior to phase out of whatever existed prior to it, segment by region, by role, opportunistically on first usage. Segmented cutovers implies temporary coexistence of the replacement with whatever is being phased out. Third is the time-boxed coexistence of the replacement and what is being phased out with a final cutover on the specific future date. For this strategy, work conducted Work conducted with whatever is being phased out continues to operate under its policies, procedures, and rules under the cutover date. This strategy is sometimes used for software projects involving architectural or database changes. Permanent coexistence of the old and replacement solution. This is the last fourth solution with all new business using the replacement solution. Solution replacement. Generally, massive cutovers present more business risk than any kind of cutover that is segmented or time box. Occasionally, however, that risks need to be accepted. A cost-benefit analysis can be conducted to determine which approach to use. Whether or not a formal cost-benefit analysis is conducted, some sample questions are researched that could be undertaken to determine the most appropriate strategy include: what is the operational impact of having 2 solutions? Are there any customer-facing or marketing conditions that could require all customers to interact with the new solution at the same time? Does the replacement solution involve software? Is it acceptable for some of the customers base to use the previous solution while others use the replacement solution. So, taking them one by one, what is the operational impact of having two solutions? Subjectively, having two solutions may seem like a bad idea from an operational standpoint. However, when there is a great deal of complexity associated with the previous solution, it may be more cost effective to have both solutions coexist with all new businesses going to the replacement. That is, when it is difficult to align the previous solution with its replacement and the amount of business conducted using the previous solution is very small. Example is in the insurance company example, the company created a new consolidated way to handle all life insurance products and decided to retain a small number of individuals to handle claims and questions for a previous product rather than converting that product to the new consolidated solution because there is only a small amount of life insurance business for the product and it is no longer offered to new customers. The subject matter experts for the previous product are all retired. There is limited documentation to support how to convert the business for this product to the new solution, and it is not possible or practical to exchange policies under that product for policies under another product. Are there any customer facing or marketing conditions that would require all customers to interact with the new solution at the same time? Logo changes are an example of a change that would require all business to use the new logo on the same date. Does the replacement solution involve software? For solutions involving software, cutover usually includes conversion of data from previous solution. Segmented or time box cutovers are good choices when data conversion is involved. Many businesses choose to offer replacement and previous solutions together as part of the segmented or time-boxed replacement strategy. This is especially true where software operating systems and interfaces to software are involved. For example, cell phone users who have the same brand of cell phone may use different versions of its operating system. The new version may be rolled out in segments where some customers in a specific area may obtain the new version earlier than others. Also, old phones may not function with the new operating system. The applications offered on these cell phones may have slightly different user interfaces depending on the underlying operating system. No matter what strategy is selected, care should be taken to develop all of the communication and roll out collateral needed to successfully cut over and adapt to new solutions. These activities include, but are not limited to, number one, sufficient communication to the stakeholders who will be directly or indirectly impacted by the new solution. Number two, completion of required training materials and delivery of training. And number three, completion or upgrade to standard operating procedures and work instructions. Number four, purchase, licensing, and installation of any necessary hardware and third-party software needed to support the solution. Five, coordination with other activities within the organization to ensure that implementation occurs at a time when the business can accept the changes and the rollout is not in conflict with other in-process programs and project works. And number six, coordination to ensure any interruption of business is clearly identified, communicated, and acceptable by the customer. So the collaboration point here is when devising communication and rollout activities and collateral, the project managers, training, communication, organizational development, and change management areas should leverage the business analyst knowledge of the existing solution and the replacement solution as input into their work. So this brings us to the end of this chapter and the end of the course. So if you have any questions,
No, sir. Currently, actually, I do not have any question. And soon as I start working on this again, on the books and presentation, then definitely I have a question, maybe some,
okay.
while studying during my, studying, there's
I
a
will
possibility that I will.
I will suggest that you go through the material yourself and see where you have problems, mark those problems, and we can discuss again sometime. Moreover, I will
Yes, sir.
also suggest that you should go through the requirement management uh, uh, practice standard from PMI. That is also good, and the uh, PMI guide for business analysis. These books, when you will read these books, you will be able to correlate all these facts. But basically, all
PMI
the
guide for
material,
business analyst.
the PMI
PMI
guide to
guide for business analyst.
business analysis, then the practice standard for requirement management.
Okay.
So if you read these three books, then you will be able to correlate the complete picture. But the matter which we have covered, this is what the exam is all about.
Hmm. Right.
So take your time. Maybe, a whole of Ramzan, you should keep working on that. And later we can find some time and talk about it. And then you can appear in the exam.
You are saying PMA guide for business analyst and practicing. I will find this on the drive. Let me check
Yes,
it.
these things are there. I've given you these things.
PBA for practitioners. This is the book, right?
This is the one we have just completed. Then there is the book PMI Guide for Business Analysis. Let me see. I have put all these things there. Okay. You can see this thing, PMI Professional Business Analyst Content, PMI, PMP, PBA Handbook. Okay, if I have not shared those things, I can share them with you. Rather, did I not provide you a link for PBA?
For PBA, you provide me the link of BA articles and books. You have provided me the links of lectures and PMI BBA presentation.
I think everything is there. Let me just find out. Just stay here and let me give you the link again. Actually, everything is available there.